better get back, as it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Welcome to Mostly Horror.
Mostly.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And I'm Chelsea.
And that's Chelsea. Yeah, I was going to try
Chelsea.
to beat you to it. We're joined by our friend Chelsea today. Friend, editor, producer, Chelsea. We have an episode.
Well, she took over the show. Couple
I wasn't going to let
I
that
almost
happen
did it this time.
No.
I was ready, but I could see you waited to record. I could feel that you were like, she's not getting away
Yeah, I
with
wasn't
it.
going to let it happen this time.
So
No
absolutely.
I let
mutiny
it
on my
slide.
show. You're just going to edit your old intro into this intro.
Yeah.
I'll just record a new one the second you guys
Yeah, I
sign
guess
up.
that's true. You can just do that. We are back with another episode, this time talking about everybody's friend Godzilla. There's an echo on someone's end.
I'm not hearing it.
I don't know.
I don't hear
whose,
it either.
but... Check.
Hello?
Hello?
It's just me.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hold on, let me.
This is all staying in.
It's
Hello?
Yeah,
not
let's
you
keep
guys.
it.
No, we're not keeping the microphone check.
Hello?
Sean, it's not you. It's not your echo. It's my echo. Check.
Oh.
Check.
Hello?
Sean.
This is all staying in.
It's staying in 100%. It's staying in.
Anyways, we're back with another episode. This time talking about our good friend Godzilla, because the new film Godzilla -1 came out. We felt
Yeah, it did.
so inclined to just make it just one episode talking about Godzilla, specifically the most recent film, and Shin Godzilla from 2016. But before that, and you guys may not have anything to contribute to this, but have either of you seen, and this is something we've talked about on the show before, which is why I'm bringing it up, it's mostly horror. Have either of you seen the new trailer for the Fallout series?
Yeah, dude, I just watched it. Literally 5 minutes ago I watched
That's
it.
really funny.
Yeah.
So I guess just to refresh, you haven't played it at all, right, Sean?
No.
Okay.
No.
And Chelsea, you have not seen the trailer nor have played the game.
I'm unfamiliar with what we're speaking of.
Okay, so basically there is after Skyrim came out, the ever popular Bethesda game Skyrim came out, they came out with a number actually of games called Fallout. So there was Fallout preceded Skyrim as
came
like
out...
a game concept, like it was like a computer game.
Yeah, the original came out in like 97.
Yeah, and so basically they brought
changed.
back they brought back this game as Fallout 3 was the first one that they released, and it repopularized this series. Open world first person shooter, similar to Skyrim, just like in a post-apocalyptic setting with guns. With there's a lot of radiation everywhere, so there's mutated people and all sorts of things. A year and a half ago or so, they announced that Amazon was going to be putting out a live action Fallout series, and the trailer for that just came out. So the show it looks like it's helmed by Ella Purnell, who is from Jackie, I believe, in Yellow Jackets.
Mm-hmm. From Yellow Jackets.
So Ella Purnell, and it also has Walton Goggins in it. Kyle MacLachlan's in it. I don't know any of the other names off the top, but the trailer looks really fucking good, and so I just wanted to bring it up
good.
because it looks so good, and I was very like on the fence about it, but the vibes are just like the trailer's really good. It feels like a James Gunn sort of trailer, like Guardians of the Galaxy, like that sort of vibe where it's just like there's madness and mayhem, but it's fun, and it's like it has that sort of air about it. It has the vibe of Fallout, nails it pretty much in my opinion, and it even has like a bit of the comedic element again, which leans into the James Gunn feel, with
Sure.
like one of the things was like the studio that brought you I can't remember what the first thing was, but it's like the studio that brought you a show, and then at the bottom it says, and also 2-day free shipping or something like that, because it's from Amazon. So I just thought that was funny in the trailer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you haven't played the game, Sean, but I'm curious what you thought about the trailer.
Well, dude, there is a creature in it. I mean, I was excited about everything I was seeing, and I've heard online that a lot of people that love the games are really excited about it because it looks like it's staying super true to form. So that's awesome. But dude, there's this creature in it that yells, and it's just like a second clip, but like it yells and you get to see inside its mouth, and at first you think there's all these like tendrils, and it's fingers. It's just like 1,000 fingers going like this inside of this thing's mouth, human fingers. And I was like, whatever this is, I need it. I absolutely need it. I'm in love with it. Yeah, dude, the visuals look cool. I'm expecting really cool monsters. There looked like there was like an Annihilation-esque bear that I saw for a second. Yeah. I'm 100% in. I'm excited for it. And I'm probably going to play the game soon. Because
I was going to say, it made me want to turn on the game like as soon as I watched it. So yeah, I might. I tried to start Starfield and I wasn't really that into it. So I might try to mess with Fallout for a bit because Fallout's very fun. So Chelsea, you should watch it
seeing
soon
right now if we can get anyone from it, because
it's gonna be super sick. So I wanted to bring that up obviously to talk about Fallout. There's not a lot of other stuff we can kind of just sprinkle in. We don't even need to call it things you already know, but they've officially wrapped shooting Beetlejuice 2, which Tim Burton posted a photo to announce the wrapping of filming that. They have announced a Thanksgiving 2 will be coming out in 2025, also helmed by Eli Roth. We haven't really talked about Thanksgiving that much on the show. We'll find time to do it another time, I think. But
yeah, we'll do it. The beginning of next episode, we'll deep dive Thanksgiving a little bit.
Yeah. But that's something else that's been announced. And the other thing that I think is just worth mentioning to kind of piggyback off of what we talked about at the beginning of our David Lowery episode is it has come to light, at least in a reporting that I read recently, that Jenna Ortega's leaving or not re-signing to come to Scream 7 on top of the possible alliances with Melissa Barea, which is very admirable and understandable, have to do with not being paid enough money, which is something that happened with Nev Campbell. And so again, this is just something that I read that was like that was possibly the baseline for her not returning, was just them not giving enough money that she should be giving. So Spyglass has just really fumbled the bag with this one, and really curious where they go from here.
Pay them.
Pay
people
them
the money that you gotta pay them. I don't understand.
The two of them make the series. Like, Nev Campbell and Jenna Ortega are the shining lights. Of course, it's good for a million other reasons.
Yeah.
Pay them you need them.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like Jenna Ortega's career was definitely on and up when Scream 5 came out, but in a sense skyrocketed. So I imagine there's some an increase that maybe they weren't anticipating, but even then that's good for your franchise.
Yeah. It was definitely one of the more popular things that she was in. She was in a lot of things right around that time. And I think Wednesday probably has been the biggest thing for her thus far, but and
then attaching to Beetlejuice,
Beetlejuice would be big for her as well. But it's just just a little thing to sprinkle on top, because that's kind of ridiculous if true, and I wouldn't put it past Spyglass. So
I have no clue what the fuck they're gonna do now. What is happening to that series? We gotta get Mike Scollins back on, because I bet he's just losing his mind.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get Mike back for our spooktacular Spook 'em Scare 'em awards. But on that note, I think it only makes sense. I want to spend a lot of this episode talking about Godzilla. So we knew that Godzilla -1 was going to come out. Do you have something to say, Sean, first?
No, you can go ahead. Okay. Well, listen, I'm getting excited over here.
He's got dancing to do.
We knew that Godzilla -1 was going to come out. And from a lot of the trailer, and B, a lot of people online, it seemed like this was going to be a phenomenal film. And basically what that warranted was us, A, getting tickets for it on opening night, and B, watching Shin Godzilla, because Shin Godzilla was the first coming back to the Godzilla series in quite some time for Toho. And it's also recognized as being like one of the better Godzilla films, and kind of the precursor to Godzilla -1 in terms of like just order of their coming out. So I want to talk about Shin Godzilla a little bit before we get into Godzilla -1. And I know that we talked about it a little when we were leaving the theater after Godzilla -1, but I think, Sean, we should start with your thoughts, because you had some things that I think were different than what I felt. So I'm curious your thoughts on Shin Godzilla, and if you have anything else to add.
Sure. Okay. Well, so first, I guess I wanted to like point to a few things. I have learned since we saw Godzilla -1, I have bombarded my brain with Godzilla information. I have like, and I apologize to everyone. I feel like by this point, if you're a regular listener, you know that it's just chaos in here. So it is not 100% as put together as I want it to be. But when I tell you that I have filled my head with, there are 37 Godzilla movies, and I have just been watching doc after doc about them. And I think it's helped me like rethink about Shin Godzilla. But yeah, so my initial, I guess what I'm saying is I'm going to probably interject random facts and thoughts that I have learned as we talk.
Perfect.
But yeah, my initial thoughts with Shin Godzilla are that I think it's like one of the coolest Godzillas that I've actually seen, like the actual design and the evolution that they go through with him. Mm-hmm. But I found myself frustrated watching the movie. I think it's one of the Godzilla movies that I probably had like the least fun watching, because there's just a million meetings. It's meeting after meeting. And I know that it's satirical, like it's supposed to be satirical. It's Japan commenting on how their government handled a lot of stuff. There's a specific incident that Shin Godzilla is about, and I'll bring that up a little bit after you guys talk a little bit. But
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just found it frustrating to mainly watch, people in meetings talking about setting up other meetings, and then quick cuts to really awesome scenes mm-hmm. with their Godzilla creature. But that's like my general thing. So I guess, I don't know, that's me setting the groundwork. What were your guys' like initial thoughts before
Chelsea, you go first.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it. I agree with you. About like the meetings get a little tedious. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it was enough. It was balanced enough where I would be like, oh, that's funny. Like they did a quick, like, should we do this? Person 1 asks person 2 for permission, who asks person 3, who asks person 4, who asks person 5, which is like goofy and silly. And then it would cut to another one. And you'd be like, are you serious? Another meeting? And then the next one, they'd do like something funny again. Yeah. So it was enough that it didn't like make me angry, but it is a weird framing around Godzilla where, like, I know we're about to talk about -1, but like what was happening around Godzilla in -1 was so much more like exciting and impactful than what was happening around Godzilla in Shin Godzilla. Exactly. But I still really liked it. And I'm not sure if this was unpopular opinion between the two of you. I know it was for Steve, but I fucking loved I was so stoked when I saw the first phase of Godzilla in Shin Godzilla. I thought, of course he's bad looking, but it just made me laugh. I thought, like, what an interesting way to do it. I just think I love to see him just kind of flopping around like a fish. Yeah. I thought it was fun.
So yeah, I need to at least walk you guys through my experience. So I bought this copy. I've had this copy of Shin Godzilla for quite some time. And it's a real movie. Like, it doesn't look like it's fake, but I just couldn't be sure, because when you have an international film released just like generally on Blu-ray and it's not through like a big company, like, I don't know, like the font on the back is kind of strange. Like, there's just some choices that I'm like, if this was like a rip or like a whatever, I would understand. Sure. But it looks real, right? It's through Funimation. But I start watching the movie. And I've heard beforehand that this is like a commentary on the bureaucracy of Japan's government and their timeliness in terms of responding to natural disaster and things of that nature. And start watching it, and I'm excited. I really enjoy the moments with the back and forth and the dialogue. It feels like an Ocean's 11 film, just without the heist.
Fair.
Like it's just that sort of like goofy back and forth. The editing and the cutting back and the acting is really funny.
Yeah.
And it is such a great satire. I do agree it gets a bit much, and I think I should say spoilers for anyone that hasn't watched these films. Go watch Godzilla -1 Inch and Godzilla, but
of course.
Post half of the government dying and then them having to rehash it, and it's kind of led by the one actor or the one character whose name Yagashi's character, the one guy who's kind of like leading the force. I think that's when things get weird for me, like when it's just him talking to the American representative for a while, and they have like that one dramatic shot where they have like a really poignant discussion about like not watching nuclear war hit Japan again, but it's just like a jib that's pulling back for forever, and they're just standing in this industrial complex, and the camera keeps going further and further away, but it like shakes a little bit. It was really strange. But I didn't mind the satirical part. I had a moment at the beginning or near the beginning. You see his tail, you see all this stuff happen, and I'm like, oh shit. And then I think the moment is like everyone is in a meeting room and they're like, shut the fuck up, look at the TV. And then it cuts to Godzilla has breached and is on the shore. And I had to pause the film and go to Google and search Shin Godzilla and look and see if the monster on screen was really in this movie. Like I didn't.
You thought you got punked or something.
I thought I was like someone sold me, Goblita or something, like some fake Godzilla film with like a whatever monster. Because unfortunately, and I know that this film is regarded as being one of the better Godzilla films, and it's a great commentary on Japanese government and etc. The VFX in this film leaves a lot to be desired, and that is very evident from the moment that you see Phase 1 Godzilla. It's evident from the moment that you see it in the water, but even then I was like, it's fine. It gets better through certain points of the film, but I do not like Phase 1 Godzilla. Its eyes are far too big, and I know it's a babe, whatever, and maybe there's a reason for it, Sean, you can explain, but I do not like Phase 1 Godzilla. I don't love Phase 2 Godzilla. He don't got no arms, and he's just throwing his head around like a dumb T-Rex, like a T-Rex amputee. And yeah, so that's
Amputee Rex.
Amputee. That's really good. Amputee Rex. That's a good band name.
Amputee Rex.
That
is a good band name.
No ableist comments on this
it's at
podcast.
least a Chiodo song.
Yes, Amputee Rex. But that was one thing really threw me off. I tried to turn off my VFX brain and be like, just appreciate this for what it is. And I will say, once they got to like, God incarnate form Godzilla, it fucking rules. And we can talk about the purple beam and all that stuff, but yeah, that's my comment on the boardroom meetings. I mean, like, there's literally one moment where they're having a meeting in a boardroom, and then I think we talked about this, but then they just they're like, we have to break into a smaller group, and then they go into another boardroom and just have more coverage. Like, it made me laugh out loud multiple times just because of how stupid it is.
Me too.
And I know that that's the point. But yeah, I think if this movie has one fault, it is, to me, Phase 1 and Phase 2 Godzilla. They really took me out of it. They really took me out of it.
I couldn't disagree more. I had such a difficult time, like, not worth getting into, but just difficult getting to the point of watching the movie. Like, everything was going wrong for me trying to get the movie to play on my fucking TV. Mm-hmm. So I was already like grumbling about it. I was like pretty frustrated, and then I saw Phase 1 Godzilla and I went ha! and was in from there. Was just fully in. So it really turned around the trajectory of my evening.
That is so good. So I have a couple thoughts. I have a bunch of thoughts. I'm going to try my best to keep it all. I'm going to focus on the phases really quick. So, first off, that's actually phase 2 Godzilla. I learned. I watched this really long breakdown. I apologize. I'll probably post it in a thing. But there's a YouTuber who did a really great breakdown of Shin Godzilla and like the science behind it. And I guess there's like 8 forms. So it's either phase 1 or it's I'm sorry. The one you guys are talking about is either phase 2 or it's phase 3. But the point is, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of that. We'll throw a link somewhere where you guys can watch this breakdown. But when you see his tail in the water just slapping around, that's phase 1, and the creature that is in that water looks different than what comes up to land. Basically, the way that they approached Godzilla in Shin Godzilla is very, like, they really focused on the radiation aspects of it, and I think that they were trying their best to be like, Godzilla as a character could not actually exist in the real world and survive, and they were trying to figure out, if this thing was real, how would it really be able to do all of this. So they really focused on its DNA being so like obliterated by radiation that the only way that it could survive is to be completely adaptable to like every situation. So that's basically what's happening. Is the phase that we see is it coming out of here, let me send you a picture so you guys can at least have like some context to what I'm talking about. So Steve, do you see the picture that I sent? In the movie Shin Godzilla, you can see 4 different forms basically that happen. There is the first form, you only get to see the tail, but under the water he's much more compact. I don't know like a name. I don't know enough about the evolution process. Huh?
Little baby dinosaur.
Yeah, little baby guy with a really long tail.
Like a
and
tadpole.
then when he comes up to land, he had to adapt to do that. And what's actually happening there is, I don't know if you guys remember the scenes where I'm sure that you do, where he's just like, there's blood pouring out of him.
He's just like sloughing off. Yeah. Yes.
And when I was watching that, I was like, this is badass, but like, why? Why is that happening?
Me too.
It's because it's basically he's bleeding out of his gills because like it has something to do with like that evolution process, like getting into, he's basically in agony. Shin Godzilla is in agony through every single form and trying to adapt to like the world.
It's Cloverfield.
Yes, kind of. It's so basically he's just bleeding out of his gills while he's transforming. Like that's what that's supposed to mean. And
it would make sense that his gills need to make like the he's becoming a land creature, so those would be like greatly affected, I guess.
Yeah, it's the video that I was watching goes into this great like breakdown about how at this point before this his body was doing something where he was like pulling oxygen from the water in a weird way, and in this form he could do both, but he's struggling with air currently, and just like all the changes that are happening inside of him are causing this to happen. I wish, dude,
pulling oxygen from water is what fishes do with their gills. So he was a water creature, and then he was turning into an amphibian and trying to figure out how to use his gills. That makes sense.
Sure, it's the breakdown that he has like explains more. It makes it make sense, and I'm realizing right now that way less of it stuck than what I thought because it's super complicated. And I also want to point to, so like they basically, Steve, you don't love the design here, but they were making the design based off like fish design and weird amphibian design and things like that. But also, it's this whole movie is super. I mean, it feels like a live action anime. And the reason, and I would say that if you look at a lot of like horror anime or manga, those big sort of like fish eyes on a terrifying creature like that's a common theme.
Yeah.
And the reason that this movie feels so much like an anime is because it's directed by Hideki Anno, who is the creator of Evangelion. But so basically there's all this science about just like the size and the cold and bone mass and things like that. Through every single step, and that's why he bleeds until he gets to, and that's why his like eyes get smaller as he evolves.
Well, he also gets bigger. grows into them.
Well, yeah, yes, but it's also about blocking the light because he was a deep sea creature.
Right, so he needed the
these
big
massive,
eyes.
yeah.
I will say I don't like necessarily hate the design, even the drawing in this. Like, you sent 2 versions, like the drawing in the one with the cream background. Like, I love that drawing. I think it's a combination of me not expecting to see that, me expecting to just see a Godzilla, and the bad VFX. Just all those things combined made me go like, oh, I don't love this right now. But yeah, I understood. Like, I think as it was going, I was like, and I made that Cloverfield reference to myself. I was like, oh, this feels like Cloverfield, where it's just like a scared baby running around. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing. It's not like it doesn't have a reason. It's just slamming into shit. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I say that I think that this phase of Godzilla is scarier than like any of the other, in terms of, I'm not saying it's the coolest by any means, but if I saw Godzilla being like the Godzilla that we know walking through the street, obviously in real life, I'd be like, that's scary, but I'd be like, that's kind of cool. This thing gives me nightmares. This thing, like, like pushing itself with its back legs, like looking like it's smiling, like coming at me down the street.
Yeah.
That's fucking horrifying.
Yep. And that thing washing up on your shore, and you see it doing that, and you, like, we all came to the understanding watching the movie that it wasn't like attacking as a predator. It was freaking the fuck out. That's worse to me. Like, who knows what's going to happen when it doesn't seem to know what it's doing or why it's there. Like, that's scarier to me too. I totally agree. I'll also put these pictures in the YouTube video.
Perfect.
For anybody who wants to see them can watch it there.
What do you guys think, since we're kind of like talking about design right now, what do you guys think of the later, you know, evolutions of it, like things like the split mouth and what was happening on the tail at the end and stuff like that?
I like it.
I didn't know what the tail was, and with what you just sent, Sean, and what we can refer back to, Shin 5th, 6th, and 7th form, I would love to know more about. But yeah, I didn't know what was happening with the tail. I love Shin Godzilla's design, like final Shin Godzilla that we see, at least.
Why is the 5th form like snatched?
Snatched?
a humanoid?
Yeah, like, look at it.
It looks like a Kim Kardashian like runway outfit.
Well, so I've never heard the term snatched, but what is snatched?
Oh, really? Like
hourglass shape,
curvy in all the right ways, and hourglass shaped. Like when your waist is like real thin, you have like a snatched waist, like very.
Looks like a runway model.
Really looking fit as fuck.
So that is in reference at the end of the movie. We're jumping around so much, but at the end of the movie, there is it kind of zooms in on Godzilla's tail, and you see that while it's frozen, it had these humanoid figures that were about to break off of its tail, suggesting that it is some sort of collective. I don't know if these things are almost seen as are these its babies or like a parasite of this evolution? You know, it seems like the way that this thing evolves wouldn't mean that it has a baby that starts at its earliest, form. It's not like that. So yeah, it seems like in whatever sequel they were prepping for, when Godzilla woke back up, these humanoids were going to come off, and they'd have to deal with these things running around the city.
I see.
Yeah,
I remember.
Okay.
No, okay.
Yeah, that's spooky. Outside of that, like in terms of what Godzilla turns into, the mouth opening, the jaw splitting for the atomic breath is fucking insane. And so cool, and still I think cooler than anything that happens in -1. I absolutely love Godzilla in -1, but I think the jaw splitting and the atomic breath, and then on top of that the spine and back shooting out purple beams to kill the stealth bombers, like that is just nonsense, insanely cool. And like the coolest shit that I've seen in a Godzilla movie. I haven't seen a ton of Godzilla movies, but I absolutely love that. I love the design. I love the purple. I think it's so cool. The purple and orange, obviously contrasting colors when it goes from fire to purple. But and then there's also like jumping back from design to like the cinematography. There's the one shot where you can really tell this is directed by the guy, but by an anime guy, where it pulls back and it's just silhouetted of Godzilla and the buildings, and the fire just takes over the whole screen. Absolutely insanely cool. So yeah, I love that design. I love the high pitch ringing that happens when the atomic breath happens. All of it, just wonderful choices. And they're like different. It's just different choices than what you would normally see in Godzilla. I think that's what makes them so great of decisions to be made.
100%. When he does his initial fire blast, I loved it because it didn't feel just like a dragon like breathing fire. It felt like a nuclear bomb. It felt like this just sweeping fire that completely took over the entire city, and the fire just like, what's the word that I'm looking for? It just like compresses in, and the energy gets more and more focused until it turns into that beam. And I completely agree. I think that it's the most powerful like breath and beam sequence ever, and I think it's a perfect to me. I felt the nuclear aspect from this Godzilla more than I have from any, which brings me I want to do like a quick little history of Godzilla to give us some context, because I find this all super, super interesting, and it relates to everything else that we're going to talk about. So the original Gojira came out in 1954 and it was 100% a film about the struggles that Japan faced during World War II and post World War II, and specifically from the bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I had to find it. Yep. I was like, it's right there. One of the most interesting things I think about this entire franchise is the back and forth that has been between Japan and America with Godzilla, specifically because we are the ones who dropped those bombs. The 1954 Godzilla came out. It was a worldwide success. It took over, and somehow those producers ended up letting America have the rights to make our own movie. And we made a movie called Godzilla, King of the Monsters. We changed the name, and we basically took 40% of the original movie. We cut out 60%. We took 40%. We took a white character, threw him in to be there to like, so that there's the white American male like perspective. And we cut out most scenes that would hint or suggest like tragedy and hardship post a nuclear blast.
Us being at fault for it. Yeah.
100%. Not just us being at fault, but just like we took a movie that was clearly a commentary about the dangers of nuclear weapons and just like war crimes, and turned it into just a monster movie. And we've been doing that. Like, we have been like disrespecting the franchise kind of since. Right after we did our movie, which tanked worldwide, like everyone hated it. There's different eras of Godzilla. So right after we did that movie, we get something called the Showa era. So the Showa era starts from like then and goes until about 75. And during this era, that's when like the first movie in that era is called Godzilla Raids Again, and that's when they introduced the concept of like Godzilla fighting other monsters. I don't know exactly how many films are in that era, but I know that throughout that entire thing, it kind of gets like funny. This is when they're really focused on just guys in suits fighting other guys in suits. It kind of feels like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. There's some back and forth. There's still interactions with America. Like at one point, we end up doing King Kong versus Godzilla, which, random fact, originally it was going to be King Kong versus Frankenstein. It was going to be like a giant Frankenstein. Yeah, it's insane. But they couldn't get the rights to Frankenstein. Some crazy stuff happened, so they plan B'd Godzilla into the situation. Yeah. But this is where we meet a lot of our characters. Toho at the time was creating, Mothra movies and like Raiden movies and things like that. And or Rodan, I said Raiden. Rodan, King Ghidorah, all that stuff. By the end of the Showa era, it's kind of like a joke. Like they were almost like leaning into making it like a kid franchise. That's when we get Godzilla's son, Manila. And it's just kind of like a joke. It almost feels like, seriously,
I didn't
Manila,
realize that Godzilla had a son.
Yes. Oh yeah, dude. It's
Philly Manila.
When I tell you
Crazy.
Eventually, I don't want to like focus on all of this for this episode because we're focusing on these two movies specifically, but eventually we need to do like a 3-part, maybe for like every era, Godzilla breakdown. But the point is, by the end of this, people were sick of Godzilla and it just felt like a joke. And so they kind of put it on pause from about, I think it's from like 75 until 84. There weren't any Godzilla movies. And then the Hezi era period starts and they go, scrap everything. We're making a sequel to the original. We're going back to scary. It's still fighting giant monsters, but we're going to talk about like the new fears of science at the time. And that era goes until about 95 and it kind of becomes a joke again. They literally do the same thing. They end up making him have another son and leaning back into kids and stuff. It's a different design. It's literally the craziest thing to watch how it's like they repeat the exact same thing that they did before. But in 1995, Toho said enough. We're done. We're not making any more Godzilla movies. It's over. We're killing him for good. But for somehow in rights and weird complicated stuff, America still had the rights to make a Godzilla movie. And so we made 1998 Godzilla versus Ferris Bueller. It's just called Godzilla. And we changed like a ton of stuff. That's where we introduced the idea of Godzilla laying eggs and these raptor-esque creatures tearing apart the city. We made him look more like, I think like a new Jurassic Park movie had come out at the time, and we were trying to copy that. So our Godzilla looks like a fusion of our design was supposed to be a nuclear, like mutated iguana that basically just turns into a T-Rex. Either way, everyone shits on this movie. The world hates it. Toho is so upset that they go, we weren't going to make any more Godzilla movies, but we're actually going to make another Godzilla movie 4 years after we said we were done. And this movie's called
Godzilla 2000 Millennium.
Yes, thank you. In that movie, I just find this so funny. They hated the design of our 98 creature so much that they put him in. In this movie, Godzilla just fights like every monster that's ever been in the franchise for the most part. Our creature shows up. They make his CGI look even worse than it did in the movie, and they kill him in like 15 seconds. He literally just kind of like throws him to the side, and I just found it really funny. But the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is because Shin Godzilla there's basically just a history of like Japan making a metaphor for the tragedies that it faces. And, you know, a lot of times like it's frustrations with us. And then we make movies that are just like breaking down their icon and turning it into like almost a joke. And it's just, they make their movies, we make a movie, and then they respond to us. It happened with our Godzilla King of the Monsters. It happened with 98. And then we made our movie with Bryan Cranston in 2014, and they decided to make Shin Godzilla in response.
And they also, when we did the Godzilla 2014, they redid rights with Legendary, who owns the rights from the US side. Yeah. And I think the discussion is that they can't put out a Godzilla movie on the same year, like America and Japan can't. And so that's why, like, I think they were wanting to make Shin Godzilla for a little bit, but they didn't put it out because 2014's came out. And so they waited a little bit longer. They had like announced it in 2014, but then waited a little bit to put it out. I mean, same with like the rate at which we're putting out Godzilla movies now in the US. It's the reason why -1 is coming out right now, and we just announced the new Godzilla Kong movie coming out next year. Like everything is sense. You know, like they're playing off of each other now, which is like kind of what they've always done. But I'm hoping that the ones that we're putting out aren't seen as much of a joke as they used to be. I still think like -1 is like heads above anything we've ever done in America in terms of Godzilla. But yeah, I hope that there's at least some sort of evolution there. But yeah, I
100%.
love the history of it. It's such a deep and rich history.
Yeah, and I obviously like barely scraped the surface, but no, I think right now it's much more there, like Shin Godzilla wasn't the aggressive response that it has been in the past, and I think that our new Godzilla, like what we're doing with Monarch, I don't really know what to call the Godzilla monsterverse that we're doing right now, but what we're doing with
the monsterverse, yeah,
yes, okay, yeah, all right. So what we're doing with our monsterverse, the Kaijuverse, there you go, is leaning more towards what was happening in the Showa and in like the middle of the Heisei period. Like we're definitely focused on monsters fighting monsters, with Godzilla not being just an antagonist, but being like a anti-hero protector of the earth. You know, like that's the Godzilla that we're leaning into, but we're not just making it fun in games. Like we're commenting on a lot of social stuff, and you know, we don't ignore the radiation aspects of it. So I think we're handling it okay. And they're probably just agreeing with each other, like, okay, that's the take you guys are going for, and we're going to focus on the much darker, like Godzilla as an antagonist side of things. Much like our Godzilla has a lot more character and is kind of like more personified and thinks and is trying to protect things, and their Godzilla is 100% a metaphor once again. Yeah. I want to talk really quickly about what specifically Shin Godzilla is a metaphor for, because I didn't.
Before you do that, can I run through the American agreement that we currently have?
Yeah, do it.
So in 2004, a director named Yoshimitsu Banno acquired permission from Toho to produce a short IMAX Godzilla film. 5 years later, in 2009, the project was turned over to Legendary Pictures to be redeveloped as a feature film. And then in 2010, they announced that the film was coming out, which is the Godzilla 2014. It was released May 16th, 2014. Obviously, you know, $500 million worldwide it made. And after that, Toho basically said, we're going to reboot ours. They like announced it, I think, at the end of that year. To reboot their stuff. And then obviously since then we've had Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is the one with King Ghidorah and Mothra and a number of others that came out in 2019. Godzilla vs. Kong came out in 2021. And then now we have the new series, Monarch, that's on Apple TV. And it was just announced that Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, is coming out in April, which former guest Jared Krzyzewski has had a part in, because he has been posting a shit ton of stuff about it. So just wanted to mention that quick timeline for the most recent American films. We don't need to touch on it a ton. Not a big fan of the 2014 one that came out personally. I enjoy the rest of them though. So
I love it. I love the Bryan Cranston one, but that's a whole other thing. But interesting. Okay, so do you see anything about why, like they did Shin, but then are clearly, and obviously we're going to get to -1 in a second, but like why they did Shin and then took a completely different direction with -1? And
I don't think a sequel was ever talked about with Shin. When I was reading about Shin, I don't think they ever spoke about a sequel. I think it was just something that they wanted to do, and especially with teaming up with the guys from Evangelion, it was just like a cool project that they wanted to make and make a commentary. I think with this one, they've spoken about a sequel, or the director has commented about wanting to do a sequel with -1. But yeah, I don't think when they make these, they're not like the US where it's like we need to make a franchise.
They're not franchising.
We don't need to make
everything.
A franchise out of everything. Like they can make Shin Godzilla and it can win, you know, Japan's equivalent of the Best Picture Academy Award, as well as Best Lighting and Best Cinematography and a number of other things. And they don't need to like keep building off of it. I know that that's what they did with other eras, but they just don't. You know, I think they're just concerned about making good movies, which is should be the concern.
Well, yeah, they just had clearly set up. I mean, Godzilla's just frozen in the city, and again, the humanoids. So they clearly wanted to keep it open-ended enough where they could do a sequel. I would say to me, it feels like a halfway point. The end of Shin feels like it needs a sequel, not in the sense I totally get what you're saying. It's just interesting that that they weren't like dead set on it while writing the ending the way that they did. But really quick, so Shin Godzilla specifically is, and the reason for all of the commentary or like the satire when it comes to Japan's government and how they handle things is because of the triple disaster that happened in 2011 in Japan. Which basically was, there was a triple there was a 9.1 magnitude earthquake that happened, and it's the highest to ever hit Japan, like in recorded history. It's also the fourth highest, or at least at the time, I'm assuming still. Sorry that my earthquake history is not 100% up to date, but it was the fourth highest ever recorded in general. Like, just one of the strongest earthquakes that we've ever seen. And it's just insane how they face the initial disaster of the earthquake and the destruction from that and all of the deaths. But this earthquake then caused a 33-foot tsunami that hit the shores of Japan. And then and obviously there's devastation and death from the tsunami itself. And then that tsunami caused the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant disaster, which basically caused it to blow up and then, radiation filled steam to cover large areas. So overall, I think it made like 300,000 people homeless. There were 20,000 lives lost. And they're expecting way, way more from the cancer and stuff still to come. And the government just didn't handle it well at all. Obviously, I'm no expert by any means on Japan politics and what happened, but this movie was specifically about that, about meetings and them focused on economic things and just not moving, not acting. Shin Godzilla seems to be a movie largely about not acting.
Yeah, being caught up by red tape, like bureaucratic red tape. And
citizens having to take over and do the things that need to be done because their government won't.
Yeah, which continues in -1. But there's a shot of the character, the lead in the movie, Yaguchi. He's like just staring over rubble. It's just like the rest of the people that he's with kind of leave, and he's just standing there. He's like with the emergency response team, and he just like, you see his back just looking at the rubble, and that's like reminiscent of like photos that were taken of the destruction. Like they very specifically like blocked a number of shots to like make them reminiscent of visuals from that. Again, not to say that this is like Godzilla came way before Cloverfield, but it's like very much a sort of thing where J.J. Abrams was pulling from 9/11 imagery to like recreate that sort of feeling in Cloverfield. But yeah, monster films have obviously always been like that sort of catalyst, or not catalyst, but like they've always been the way to showcase like destruction in this sort of way.
Right. Natural disaster.
I think that's one reason I enjoy Shin Godzilla as a whole, is because I think the commentary is so strong. I think like the execution probably isn't like up to my personal par and what I would have loved to see it as. Like I would love to see them take a second swing at it with the people that put together -1. But yeah, I thought it was great. On that note, let's talk about -1, because
let's do it.
As I said at the beginning of this, we saw online a number of people talking about how great this new Godzilla film was, have been excited since I've seen this trailer, and we all went to go see it a couple days ago. I'll start, I guess.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite films I've seen this year. Just like bar none. I think that even without Godzilla, it is a wonderfully well made and poignant film whose themes are extremely clear cut and well developed. It's set, for context for people that haven't seen it, it's set near the end of World War II, and our main character that we follow, Shikishima, was his last name, Koichi Shikishima, is a kamikaze pilot. He's a kamikaze pilot who has essentially fled his post as a kamikaze pilot, claiming that his plane has issues with it. And when he goes to the island, Odo Island, to get his plane repaired, they find that nothing is wrong, basically signaling that he has kind of fled his post. He doesn't want to be a kamikaze pilot. It essentially means certain death. And he just doesn't think that that's right, or is afraid and doesn't want to do that. Once on Odo Island, everyone is attacked by Godzilla. Shikishima has a chance to fire his gun at Godzilla, which probably would have done nothing, but has a chance to fire his gun, freezes up, doesn't do it, and Godzilla ends up killing everyone on the island except for Shikishima and one other person, one engineer. And basically that goes into the rest of the film, which talks about Shikishima suffering from survivor's guilt on the island, but also suffering from his own dealing with inaction and being a coward when he comes home from the war after it ends. His next door neighbor calls him a coward, and he's reluctant to tell people that he was a kamikaze pilot, like people that he didn't know, because if you're a kamikaze pilot, you should have died. Like, you should have died serving your country. And so he's reluctant to tell people that. And when people do find out he was a kamikaze pilot, they look at him, a certain type of way. And I loved that. I loved the theme of the movie was just so strong. It was something I'd never seen before. It's this unique perspective on not wanting to die for your country, but still feeling like you should help your fellow man, and feeling remorse for like not doing what other people think is the right thing to do. And obviously that comes around near the end of the movie where he wants to be a kamikaze pilot and everyone says, don't kill yourself. So I love that. I thought that the acting was so well done. It was beautifully shot. It was so beautifully shot and so beautifully lit. I loved it's really funny because watching Shin Godzilla and -1 back to back, like, we don't see a lot of fades to black anymore in films. Like, everything in America is cut like really cleanly. And granted, -1 like goes through like jumps years, just like a couple of years every now and then. But we don't really see like that sort of stuff. So I just really enjoyed the editing and the pacing and the music. I mean, the theme in Godzilla in general is great, and they use the same music throughout -1 as well. It's wonderful stuff. And then on top of that, Godzilla absolutely rules in this movie. He looks, in my opinion, the best that a Godzilla has ever looked in all of the Godzillas that I've seen, outside of the color that they use for his radioactive stuff being blue and not purple. It's okay, I'll allow it. And yeah, I mean, this movie was made for $15 million, and
which is insane.
And it looks better than, most films that we would make in America. So I absolutely loved it. There's a reason why the director who did this film has won Academy Awards already in Japan. I have no doubt that this will win an Academy Award in Japan. I think it should be nominated for Best International Film in the US for the Oscars. It was just absolutely unreal. I was floored by it. Really want to watch it again. It's one of my favorite monster movies, if not my favorite monster movie now outside of Cloverfield. Like, I absolutely love it. So that's how I feel about Godzilla -1.
Chels, I'll sandwich, or I'll be the other bread.
The meat?
Yeah.
I'll be the other bread.
You're the meat.
Yeah, I don't know. I loved it as well, for all of the same reasons. I haven't seen too many Godzilla movies. I'd only really seen the most recent American ones, and liked those. But I don't have any, I didn't have any knowledge, any history of, I mean, I knew that Godzilla came about because of like the nuclear attacks and like in response to that. So I did know that, but I don't have a lot of Godzilla knowledge. And I didn't know that this was a movie that was coming out until about a week ago when Steve mentioned that you guys were going, and I said, I want to go. And he said, okay, but you should watch Shin first. So I watched Shin on Thursday and saw this on Friday. So I had little to no expectations at all, even after Shin was like, well, I don't know what this is going to be. And it blew my fucking mind. This movie fucks so hard. It was so good. I was crying.
Yeah.
I said it earlier, but like what's going on around Godzilla is so impactful. It was just such an amazing story.
Yeah.
I've never been so invested in every part of a monster movie. Like when we saw Godzilla vs. Kong, Steve and I like argued for a month about who was going to win, you know, like cuz Steve incorrectly and stupidly thought that Kong would.
I remember that.
No one
I was
no
telling
one lost
yeah.
that movie, but
You remember remember when Steve had just a full mental break and said the craziest thing to ever be spoken? So but like that was the only thing I was seeing that for was to prove Steve wrong and to see some monsters fight. I didn't care about a moment of what else was going on. So this was just, it was really exciting to see like a drama that had a kick-ass monster. Like,
that is one of the biggest faults in the American Godzilla films, in my opinion, is that the human elements are
weak,
not good. Yeah,
I agree. Other than the Bryan Cranston one, I like the Bryan Cranston one. I don't understand the extreme distaste for the human elements, but 100% in terms of like the non-Godzilla scenes, the human elements, you know, the story that is happening, you know, parallel with a Godzilla attack. Godzilla -1 blows every other movie I've seen out of the water in that regard. And yes, many monster movies that I've seen out of the water. It's definitely better than all of the, like, I care about the characters in the Bryan Cranston one, but all of the sequels and stuff that we've been doing, I couldn't tell you a thing that's happening with any of them. I remember that Millie Bobby Brown is in, you know,
one of them,
one or two of them. Yeah. And I remember there's like a podcast dude and something about her dad, but like, that's it. This story will stick with me 100%. So in terms of like fitting Godzilla into a drama, basically, you know, or making a dramatic Godzilla movie, yeah, this 100% takes the cake. It's interesting because, you know, there's 37 Godzilla movies. Godzilla is an icon. There are diehard fans and people that love different eras for different reasons. So I feel like, you know, there are people that this movie is like, if you're a big fan of later Showa era, you know, Godzilla movies where you just want to see people in suits fight, then yeah, you probably think that this movie's weak or it's just using Godzilla as a tool in something. But I think that one could argue that in terms of just being a movie, that this is probably the best Godzilla movie that was ever made. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, and I would argue that.
It's funny though, while we were watching it, I expected, mainly Steve, but potentially both of you, to come out and be like, yeah, it was cool. You know, I really love the drama, but I just didn't like, because Steve has specifically said before in critiquing the 2014 one, he's like, I don't care about the people. I just want to see monsters fight. So that's the perspective that I had in my head for you. So when the movie ended and you said that you loved it, I was like, there are no monsters fighting and there's not a ton of Godzilla destroying cities. Like it's there for sure. I'm not saying that it's minimal or anything.
I think it's the fact that in 2014, it's just the difference of the human element is so strong in this movie that if you took Godzilla out, it is still a really good movie. Or you replace Godzilla with something else happening. I cannot say the same for 2014, and I even with the monster stuff, like there's not that much cool monster stuff happening. In my opinion, like the monster stuff that does happen, whereas the monster stuff in this, like the initial rickety wooden boat again, going pretty heavy into spoilers here, but the initial rickety wooden boat chase scene with the mines is wonderful. Is great. It's Jaws. It's so good. You know what I mean? Like the scene with him in I can't remember the city, starts with a G.
Ginza?
In Ginza, when he does his hyper beam, and it literally is an atomic bomb, different from the purple beam because it shoots and then the explosion happens in the distance, and it's silence. Like that was magnificent. And even the scene of the way that the mushroom cloud dissipates and explodes and then implodes was so good. And then even the Christopher Nolan-esque setting up of the plan and executing of the plan around Godzilla, again going back to even like an Ocean's 11 sort of vibe, but like this one felt more Christopher Nolan-y, just comparing it to the white American directors that I know. Like that whole sequence with Godzilla was so great, even though it wasn't Godzilla necessarily like fighting. It's again to something that you said, like American Godzilla has this brain and these thoughts, whereas like Godzilla in these Japanese films is like really just a creature, and we're figuring out how to interact with it in the best way. And like, you know, think about what it's going to do next. So yeah, that's my difference between, and frankly, I should rewatch 2014. I haven't seen it since 2014, but this film was so good it could stand on its own outside of that. Which is the big difference for me.
It's also, and you pointed out when you said that there wasn't as much monster in 14. Yeah, they hold on to, and I think that this serves them well for what they were doing. But you know, you don't really get to see Godzilla in that movie until the end, and that comes with you know, a handful of pros. Some cons, obviously, if you're going to see a Godzilla movie and you don't see a ton of Godzilla, you might be frustrated. But especially with them setting up a monsterverse, I think it worked. It makes it so that when you do see him, and for building tension and stuff like that, it's crazy impactful. There's the scene where everyone's in the airport in 2014, and up until now, you've just seen like, you know, his spine in the ocean, and you've seen things move. You've seen a tail whip. You've seen like slight silhouettes, but they're at this airport, and there's like a, and then you see like his foot, and it does this pan up, and it's super dramatic. Doing that also made it so that they could put all of their money and time, visual effects wise, into making him look amazing in that shot, which is one thing that I will say is, I love Godzilla -1. I'm not 100% Godzilla -1 is better than 2014, but I think in terms of like compositing a visual effects creature into a real world place, this looks great, but I think 2014 nailed that. I think our Godzilla in 2014, as a design and lighting and putting him into a real world, I still think that he looks the best out of any Godzilla movie.
To play devil's advocate, don't most of those scenes happen at night though?
100%. 100%. And I mean, those are creative choices. Yes. Yeah. I would say like, cause there's night shots obviously in -1, and I would still say that he looks better, but yes, you're 100% right. And he looks less good in our later movies, our sequels from this, because they're spending way more time and money. You know, they have to stretch those visual effects out, that budget out, and that time out.
I'm sure they got more money too, though.
Sure, but still, like if you look at them all, the basically the end of 2014, I think is perfect. I have no complaints, where I do have other complaints. But yeah, so. Also, you said mushroom cloud, and it reminded me of another random fact that I find super interesting. In the original Gojira movie, a big part of the reason that Godzilla's design looks the way it does is so that in many shots, especially amongst like steam and smoke and stuff, that he looks like a literal mushroom cloud. They designed him to look like that explosion.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, -1. It 100% nails the human element, and you're absolutely right that the kamikaze like pilot story could have been a great movie on its own without Godzilla. Like part of me wonders if someone was just writing that movie and it was like, oh well, what if it was a Godzilla movie instead?
So the thing about it is that the director of this film Takashi Yamazaki has already won Japan's Best Picture, like in his career. He has done a number of films. He's done some animated stuff, adaptations of Parasite, like the isn't that an adaptation? Maybe it's not. He's
Parasite
done
the anime?
No, I thought so. Like Parasyte.
Yeah, I love that anime.
I thought, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, they're based on the manga series. He's also done an animated Lupin the Third. He's done Stand by Me Doraemon, which is another manga series adaptation. But he did a film called The Great War of Archimedes, which is basically like this war battleship film that was nominated. I guess it didn't win Best Picture, but was nominated for a number of Japanese Academy Awards. So this director is like really versed in this sort of stuff. It doesn't surprise me that he made another great war film. And yeah, I think the setting was just like putting, similar to what we talk about with like Prey and things like that, like putting Godzilla in a period piece is something that I didn't expect. And I think just kind of the whole film benefited from that. The other thing that I want to bring up, just because maybe it's because I haven't watched a Godzilla film in a minute, or the concept just wasn't hitting me. But with watching Shin Godzilla and watching Godzilla -1 and knowing that Pokemon is from Japan, Hyper Beam is absolutely based on the fact that, because when you use Hyper Beam in Pokemon, you have to rest for the next turn. And that is 1,000,000,000% based on the fact that when Godzilla uses his beam, he has to like recoup his like radioactive Imagine Dragons energy. Like that is 100% the reason behind it. I love that that's clicking for me now. But I just had to bring that up because I was like, that was such a great click when I was watching Shin Godzilla.
I wonder if that is completely, like, if that truly originates with, with Godzilla or Gojira. I know in the original Gojira, like near the end of the movie, it doesn't even really talk about it, but you do see this like weird effect, like his back, his tail and his spine start to glow and he like breathes fire, but it's not like the big, it's handled very differently than what we're used to. And I don't think they really touch on that again until like later in the Showa era, or even like the Heisei era. It might be something that's kind of like left out for a minute. I'm going to watch all 37 of these movies and become a Godzilla expert.
I feel like I want to also.
Either way, dude, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that comes from that, or if there's like old yokai stories that are similar to that, of like an energy beam that is, I mean, energy beams are clearly a very common theme in, a lot of like Japanese stories and animes and things that I've seen for a long time. But yeah, I just wonder if there's like an old yokai creature that does that has some sort of energy beam and then has to recharge. It probably just goes back to history with alien stuff. I bet if I dig deep enough, I'll find a way to connect it to aliens.
Yeah. So obviously we love Godzilla -1. Shin Godzilla is another fun watch as well. I'm excited to watch the Monarch TV show that's on. Although I do have to say, in the first episode, the VFX was already killing me. But I do want to jump in and watch. It was tough, man. Some of the compositing was like really rough.
Yeah, really quick. Obviously it's not what this episode's about, but also stoked for Monarch. I watched episode 1, and it starts off with horrible visual effects. Even
after that part, it has some bad stuff too. But that
just stands out the most.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah.
There's a shot where it's like three characters and they look up at a building with stuff falling off of it, and the stuff falling off of it was like, I don't know, it was like clip art falling. It was like awful.
I missed it.
Yeah, it was not good.
So, and I get like you're doing a show and whatever, but if you're gonna do it, then do it is my thing. If you can't do it, if you can't afford to do it, then just don't.
Yeah, I agree.
But
to tail end this episode, and we can make this maybe a little shorter of a game because we've already spent some time talking about Godzilla.
I forgot we were playing a game.
We don't have to do a full game, but I think it would be fun to hear everyone's thoughts on, we can call it 2 or 3.
I got some good ones.
We've had Godzilla versus a number of people. You talked about, a lot of some of those Godzilla films from Japan where he fights all the monsters. We obviously have Godzilla, King of the Monsters here, which is where he fights King Ghidorah, and he fights
Mothra and Rodan.
Rodan.
Yeah.
He fights Kong.
He doesn't fight Mothra, but Mothra's there.
Yeah. But I think it would be fun to hear about some other people that Godzilla could fight. So let's just do, again, we don't need to spend a ton of time on this, but let's start. Chelsea, I'd love to hear your first because you give great pitches, but your first person that you think Godzilla should be fighting.
Okay. First, I promised them I would credit them, but Kaylee, Max, and I all worked together on these last night.
Nice.
So I got a lot of help and inspo from them, which actually you'll know immediately from my first pick, because I was trying to think of like the scariest things that I know and what could I turn into a kaiju, and the scariest thing in my personal existence is Olive, Kaylee's cat. For those who don't know, and Kaylee has cleared use of photos if you end up needing them, you can use her pics.
Yeah, you should.
Maybe I'll put some in the YouTube video. For those who don't know, Olive is Kaylee's 25-pound female orange tabby, which is like rare and like genetically designed to be cruel. Like the female orange tabbies, like they really don't exist, and also they are so mean.
Is she like Godzilla? Is she just also constantly in some sort of pain and anguish, just internally?
Well, yes.
Her organs are throbbing.
Let me,
all times.
Sure. Yeah, let me paint you a picture. Not quite that, but yeah, I feel like we know already just in our hearts that Olive is eternal. She's fueled by hate. She's possessed by a demon. We know these things to be fact. She has either no soul or a completely ruined soul. So she's already got this going for her, where over time I feel that the hate that fuels her, we've seen that she grows. She's a big girl, and the hate will continue to grow her until she is monster or kaiju sized. I think she can have her phases too. I feel like whatever demons got her inside can help her evolve, can help her regenerate the way Godzilla does. So she can fight in that way. Her moo, Olive's moo, is now deafening, breaking the sound barrier completely. I wrote down lower than the brown note. So it's rough. She'll still have her stubby little arms, but Godzilla has those too, so I think it's an even match.
They both got stumpy arms.
Sure.
And cats are a natural predator of lizards, so I'm just putting it out there.
That's fair.
A very good point.
Yeah.
Can I just say
Go ahead.
I was just going to say for any listeners, you may actually even recognize Olive from a TikTok that I posted like 2 years ago that blew up, went viral.
You're verbally abusing a cat, Sean.
I was not. She was being abusive.
It.
I was commenting on how. Yeah, and that was the other thing is I was making fun of her for being just a cow, and everyone was like. I think in the comments I said it's fine to laugh because she's a bitch, and people were like, "Well, yeah, because you treat her blah 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 blah," and people not understanding.
The comments were so stupid.
People
knows
like
this
you're
cat.
abusing the animal.
Yeah,
you don't know the cat.
She gets
you don't
taken
know.
care of by Kaylee. Any other person would have abandoned this cat. She's taken care of.
100%.
Yes. The cat is just fine. She's just a bitch.
Yeah, I'm not pro removing an animal's claws, but I think we should have taken all of her limbs.
She should have had her fucking teeth removed.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that'd be a great. She'd be a great match for Godzilla once she got big enough.
Yeah. Agreed.
I agree.
Yeah. Fair.
All right, Sean. What about
who next? Me? How many are we doing?
I say two
Three?
or three.
Okay.
Chelsea just took probably one of mine, so I only have two now. But
Oh.
I'll at least comment on my first.
Okay. All right. So I was thinking about it, and I was really racking my brain. I was looking for like giant monsters and mechs and things like that, and I came across. I reached back in time into my childhood and remembered holding what is probably the worst controller design that's ever been made in video game history. And I thought of
GameCube?
No, the 64. The GameCube controller is the best.
I love that.
Controller.
I love the 64 controller.
It's fun, but it's awkward. It's a weird. If you play a game with a controller, you have to hold it like this, and then there's an extra appendage here. I love my 64. I still play my 64 to this day, but it's a goofy controller design, and I think the world would agree. But I was like, do I want Godzilla to fight one big thing, or do I want to sick a hive mind against Godzilla? And I thought of one of the most frustrating hive minds that I've ever come across. And let me just play a little theme for you. And all of a sudden, Godzilla is standing, destroying the city, and he hears this music.
It's a fucking Pikmin.
And a bunch of purple polygons from Super Smash Bros. 64 come out and start attacking him. If you were alive in the late 90s, early 2000s, you may have played Super Smash Bros. 64, and there is a level right before Master Hand where you have to fight like 50 or 60 polygon versions of every character in the game. And I think that if Godzilla fought the polygons from Super Smash Bros. 64, he wouldn't stand a chance. Those guys are resilient. They're a huge pain in the ass. And they have the power of everyone there. So he's got to fight Polygon Kirby, Link, Diddy Kong. Chelsea's probably Googling to see what the fuck I'm even talking about.
A clue. I'm actually just letting it wash over me. I'm not even looking it up.
Got you. But yeah, I just imagine an army and especially because I'm taking the entire Smash universe at this point. I guess not just 64, but every Smash character in pink polygon form, just a cloud of them coming at Godzilla. I don't care what Godzilla you're throwing at it. I don't care if it's the OG Gojira, something from one of the late Hezi periods. I don't care if it's the one Ferris Bueller fought, 14 Bryan Cranston, or if it's -1 or Shin. I don't think any of them stand a chance.
I would like to see Godzilla in a 64 game. That would, or in a Smash game would be cool.
This is completely off, like small sidebar. I saw a TikTok today of this guy who's just like a programmer. He's some sort of, he's clearly wanting to get into the video game industry, and he's developing a game right now that looks awesome, both visually and like fighting style. And the whole game it's a fighting game where you play as dinosaurs that are wielding like swords in their teeth and just like whipping. I'll send you a video later. It's fucking awesome. If he has a Kickstarter, everyone needs to fund it. It's like the coolest thing. But either way, put Godzilla in that game.
Okay.
But yeah, Godzilla versus the Polygon team.
That's good.
I do love the idea of like a hive mind. I went that route a little bit as well.
Would not have thought that you were gonna go with the Polygon team, but that's okay.
I went with the weirdest things I could think of, so I got more.
That is weird. I have one weird one not so weird. I will say, so I only have two now because Chelsea said olive. My last one was going to be chicken Arya, which is my cat.
Yep.
Not as effective as Olive. Not even worth saying at this point, but I wanted to mention it. I think if Olive and Arya teamed up, they could kill Godzilla.
Godzilla would be toast.
Godzilla would be toast. I was trying to think. I honestly think that my spinoff is really good, and I should pitch it to someone. Hasbro, originally a toy company. Mostly a toy company. Started the Transformers franchise as a collaborative effort between an American company and a Japanese company. And I was trying to think of the best like franchise to go into a Godzilla film. And I really think that Transformers versus Godzilla would be super fucking cool. One of those things where like Transformers are the good guys and Japan is being attacked by Godzilla, maybe plus 1 or 2 monsters, and they enlist the Transformers to fight Godzilla. I think that would be super sick. And I also think that, like,
honestly,
I think that, like, Megatron maybe was, like, wielding Godzilla as, like, a weapon and, like, keeping him underwater and, like, gestating him for when the time is right to, like, make an attack. And Megatron is the one who, like, brought Godzilla to, you know, to come and attack Tokyo. So it's really Godzilla and Megatron and Starscream versus Optimus Prime and the rest of the Transformers. I think it would be super cool. I think that, like, the car aspect of things, like, doesn't really help at all, but I love the idea of Optimus Prime. I don't know how big Optimus Prime is, but, like, some form of Transformer fighting Godzilla. It's even cooler than Mechagodzilla versus Godzilla.
I have a lot of thoughts. Ready? All right, dude, listen. Chelsea, take some notes. We're all going to be fucking Oprah rich. All right, here's the deal. So first off, mechs versus kaiju goes back forever.
Works,
you know,
yeah.
it's super funny. We talked about let me find his name. I gotta find his name. But the director of Shin Godzilla, also being the creator of Evangelion, which Evangelion was a direct inspiration for Del Toro's Pacific Rim.
Yeah,
you know, but in Japan culture, yeah, you know, even Gundams at some point I think fight giant monsters, like mechs versus kaiju. So you're existing in familiar territory, but bringing Transformers in. I think as long as Michael Bay doesn't direct, this is a great idea. But hear me out. You said you don't know how cars could fit in. What if it was a Godzilla, Transformers, Fast and the Furious crossover?
Yes.
You don't.
And it's
need
about
it to
family.
You don't need it to be Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You need Vin Diesel driving Optimus Prime. All right, because the only thing that can, at the end of the day, you know what really beats Godzilla?
Family.
Does that transition into what you were going to do next, Chelsea?
No.
Okay,
can you imagine if I was like, funny you should say?
Yeah.
Because again, I'm going fast.
Yeah, I just really think, I don't know if you need the Fast and Furious, the F&F squad there, but it's okay.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't hurt. But you bring Shia LaBeouf's back, and, you know, between Shia and Bumblebee and Optimus Prime, I think you have a good movie there. So
I'm in.
Me too.
Liam Neeson's?
I'd watch it.
Yeah, Liam Neeson's.
Liam Neeson's is my shit.
Yeah. So Godzilla vs. Transformers was my number one.
Nice.
Love it.
Chelsea.
Okay. I've been watching a lot of It's Always Sunny over here recently.
Nice.
In fact, I watched all of It's Always Sunny in the last couple of weeks. And so we just had him on the brain. And I just feel like the gang really, like, they either find a way to, like, miraculously get the job done, or they fuck it up so gloriously that it's, like, worth it to have seen it. So I think the gang fights Godzilla is my second pick.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Mac first performs an ocular pat down to identify weaknesses. He is, before you ask, he is wearing the cat eyes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Frank has his gun, which I know, like, they're not supposed to work, but Frank really wields the gun, so I'm betting
Frank's
on
gun.
it helping in some way.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think in this situation, Charlie's rat bat is, like, made of something that, like, like what repels radiation? Like, I don't know. It's covered in iodine or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Something like that. You know what I mean?
Maybe he got a piece of Godzilla's, like, scale.
Yeah.
And it's, like, coated in that.
Or he
I'll tell you what Charlie's doing.
What?
Charlie is feeding it milk steak.
Maybe Charlie.
Godzilla milk steak.
Maybe Charlie found an egg, and it was actually a Godzilla egg, and he ate it, and now he's like, he's got
growing.
a little bit of the power.
What if Dayman and Nightman teamed up to fight Godzilla?
Yes, they're definitely involved somehow. D turns into a bird and pulls the
bird.
plane distracting maneuvers.
Yep.
Sure.
And then Dennis has his systems. And so he's adapted the dentist system, and this kind of works. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just let me say it and you tell me what you think.
I think Godzilla wouldn't want to fight them because of the implications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we did adapt the dentist system to now be, before it was demonstrate value, engage physically, nurture dependence, neglect emotionally, inspire hope, and separate entirely. So we now have destroy all hope, but I don't know how we got there. I didn't write down how we got to destroy all hope. Evolve into a kaiju. So we figured that out. Charlie's got the eggs.
Sure.
Never give up. It's just important.
Yep.
Neglect emotionally stays in it's essential to the dentist system. Initiate attack and slice in half.
Well, and also Charlie Day was involved in Pacific Rim, and so maybe he has access to a Del Toro mech or something. So who knows, man?
Yeah.
Said crossover.
True.
When worlds collide.
All right, Sean, what's your second versus?
In thinking about different giant monsters and stuff, one occurred to me that's been with me since my childhood. And I thought, this is not my pick, but this is how we got to my pick. Okay. I thought of a familiar giant green dinosaur dragon that terrorizes a city or is a hero, and also is a very delicious chocolate bar. From the early 90s Nickelodeon show Rugrats, there is Reptar. But while I was thinking about Reptar, I was like, it's a little on the nose. It's a little on the nose to have Godzilla fight Reptar, which is clearly inspired by Godzilla. It's too meta, right? We're getting too much. But in parallel, I remembered another character from season 3, episode 21 of Rugrats, where Angelica finds out that her parents are considering having another baby, and she becomes very scared of this idea. And Angelica has a nightmare. And in this nightmare, her little brother-to-be grows into a giant baby that terrorizes the city. And it's actually one of the scariest episodes of this entire show. I would say the 2 scariest episodes of the show are this one, and then when Chucky is afraid of a monster under his bed.
Oh, yeah. This is the meme. This is the very memeable Big Boy Baby. Yeah, Big Boy Baby.
Yeah. And he eats Angelica at the end of his nightmare, spoiler alert. But for anyone that I might be bringing up repressed childhood traumas and nightmares, 100% this baby is scarier than Godzilla. And on sheer fright alone, Godzilla would cower and return to the ocean.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and Angelica's big baby brother is my second pick.
Nice.
Dang.
I'd forgotten him, and it was a jump scare to Google him just now.
Yeah, dude, it's fun.
Yeah, literally.
This baby made like a resurgence on Twitter a couple years ago, because I remember there was like one tweet where it was like, "Wish I never saw that video of that giant baby," and it was just the image of the giant baby from Rugrats.
Jokes aside, it was one of those episodes like truly that was, as a little kid, it scared the fuck out of me.
Was it a Halloween episode?
No, I don't think so. Maybe it was. It didn't focus on Halloween at all. In terms of the plot, maybe it was released around then, but
aired
it was.
In March.
Got you. It was truly just. I mean, that show was all about like how kids interpret the world around them, and like the things that we find scary that don't make sense. But make sense to a kid. And yeah, it was just about the fear of your parents having another kid and what that could mean for you as an only child, and you're used to being the baby and stuff like that. Fucking terrifying, that episode. And again, the episode where Chucky has a monster under his bed. They hear about a boy that was eaten by a monster. Both of those embedded into my psyche. And I'm pretty sure watching Angelica get eaten by her brother, or because it's from it's a POV shot, you see from Angelica's perspective, and you see yourself getting dropped into the baby's mouth. I'm pretty sure that's why I have the deep fear of being eaten and like swallowed alive that I do. Like that is just in my head.
Damn.
Those movies are still, but Rugrats, man, fucking up children since '91.
That is a good one, and one I would have never thought of. Godzilla doesn't stand a chance. All right, my second one, my last one here. I was looking for something to watch with Sydney on TV, and I was going through my usuals, things that I haven't watched but that I watch normally when they come out, and I realized that one of my favorite shows, Lego Masters, has another season, new season happening right now. Just watched the semifinal episode, which led me to think Will Arnett, one of my favorite people, probably. How could Will Arnett beat Godzilla? And I don't know if he could himself, but Lego Batman, I think that Lego Batman and the Lego universe in general, and this isn't a plug for Lego, but specifically the Lego Batman movie. All the Lego movies are really fun. The Lego Batman movie is another really fun one. It's not just Lego Batman. It is all of the Batman people, all of the DC people are in it, and it also features a number of villains from other universes that would also be a part of this in fighting Godzilla. So we have Medusa, the swamp creature. We have Daleks from Doctor Who. We have the Wicked Witch of the West. We have the Kraken. We have Agent Smith from the Matrix. We have the Bruce from Jaws. We have Voldemort. We have Sauron. We have T-Rex and Velociraptors from Jurassic Park. We have Skeleton Warriors from Jason and the Argonauts. And we have Gremlins. And we have Tom Cruise from Jerry Maguire. So I feel like all of those things as Legos would be able to kill Godzilla, especially if Godzilla was in Lego form, which I don't know if Lego has the rights to do Godzilla. I should look it up while I'm thinking of this now. But I would love to see Godzilla Lego. So.
You know what you just did? You just did a Lego version of the Ultimate Showdown. That's what just happened. That's literally, what's the first couple lines? Old Godzilla was hopping around Tokyo City like a big playground when suddenly Batman burst from his cave and hit Godzilla with a bat grenade. And the whole video is all of these characters fighting. That's what you just did. You said Lego Ultimate Showdown.
I have never heard of Ultimate Showdown, but now that you're saying it,
Me either.
I'm looking it up.
What?
We'll have to watch it.
Where were you in 2006? Were you not on E-Bombs World? Were you not on the internet?
I must have missed this one. You really nailed that year too. Yeah, this came out December 22nd, 2005.
I have seen this. I just, you know me, I don't remember a single thing.
This is the ultimate showdown of ultimate destiny. Good guys. See, if you really don't know what that is.
No.
Holy fuck. Okay. All right. Well, you need to watch that when this is done. I'm not going to tell you who wins.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Lego Godzilla versus Lego Batman and other Lego creatures, I think I would just love to watch that in general. I'm looking at it now. It doesn't look like there's ever been a Lego Godzilla, which seems like a miss. Although there is ideas.lego.com. Someone did make their own Godzilla out of Lego and it looks super fucking cool. So
it must just be a right
shout
thing.
Out to Matthew Esposito who made this.
I support it. The Lego verse could definitely kill Godzilla.
I'm gonna do a fun little thing. Sean, how many names can you remember from the Ultimate Showdown? You got Godzilla, you got Batman.
Okay, well, there's Gandalf the Grey and Gandalf the White and Monty Python and the Holy Grail's Black Knight and I don't remember the next line. But there's Jackie Chan, there's Aaron Carter, there's Shaq, there's Spock, The Rock, Doc Ock, and Hulk Hogan. There's old Godzilla was hopping around Tokyo City like a big playground when suddenly Batman burst from the shade, hit Godzilla with a bat grenade. Godzilla got pissed and began to attack when he didn't expect to be blocked by Shaq, who was about to open up a can of Shaq Fu when Aaron Carter came out of the blue, and then he started beating up Shaquille O'Neal, and then they both got flattened by the Batmobile, but before he had time to make it to the Batcave, Abraham Lincoln rose from out of his grave and pulled an AK-47 out from under his hat and blew Batman away with a rat-a-tat-tat, but he ran out of bullets and he ran away because Optimus Prime came to save the day. Oh, this is the ultimate... All right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's probably... And Mr. Rogers.
All right.
I can probably do more.
Not really mentioned were Scruff McGruff, nephew of McGruff the crime dog.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, a Care Bear.
Yes.
Chuck Norris, Benito Mussolini.
Norris.
Benito Mussolini.
Yep. And the Blue Meanie.
Cowboy Curtis, Jambi.
And
RoboCop, the Terminator, Captain Kirk, Darth Vader, Lopan, Superman, the Power Rangers, Bill S. Preston, and Ted Logan.
Spock the Rock, Doc Ock, and Hulk Hogan all came out of nowhere.
You got a lot of them, though.
That was a fun one. You got like half.
That has been stored deep in my subconscious since 6th grade. So
all right, to wrap this up, any other honorable mentions for who Godzilla should fight?
Who goes first?
I was making a list, or attempting to make a list on Friday night while I was drinking, and the only thing I wrote down was Godzilla versus me. I'll beat his ass. And then when I sat down, when I sat down again to try to come up with real ideas, I thought of Paddington.
Oh, nice.
Like the bear?
Yeah, like if the earthquake that destroyed Paddington's home was like triggered by Godzilla busting out of the ocean or something.
I've never seen Paddington.
It's
neither have I, but I heard it's amazing.
Yeah, everybody loves it. It's cute.
Yeah.
I think he traps Godzilla in the marmalade. Is how that goes.
Nice. Okay.
Love it.
What about you, Sean?
So I really only have two. I have there is a TikTok trend going around by a band. I think I've talked about it a little bit before. I think it's genius. It's them. They're memeing out their own song. And it inspired me that a giant Sting from WWE, the wrestler Sting, who basically just looks like the Crow, could totally take Godzilla, especially if he had this band's theme, which I apologize, I don't know the name of the band, but the song is like, they use all these memes with Sting, and it'll be like Sting standing like with a leg on his shoulder looking down from a cage, and the song's just like, Lord forgive me, yeah, and it'll say like me watching the homie ignoring or me standing outside my homie's window because he left me on red. Whatever.
What the fuck?
And I just imagine Godzilla's tearing apart the city and a giant cage falls down on him and you hear, Lord forgive me, yeah, and Sting's just about to open up a can of whoop ass on him. So the WWE wrestler Sting. I also wrote I also was just thinking about, okay, giant things, size. I was like, so Ant-Man can kind of get big, whatever, but nah, it's too mainstream. Who else makes things big and small? And I thought about Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And then I was like, you know what? I don't even think you'd need the shrink ray. I just think Rick Moranis could probably take Godzilla.
He's got it under control.
Yeah.
He took Audrey too. He's got a shrink ray somewhere.
He got punched on the Upper West Side.
Yeah, dude, he got fucking decked. I'd sucker punch for no reason.
Yeah,
I bet Rick Moranis could probably take Godzilla. So
that's true.
I don't know how it would happen yet. We could get writing.
Yeah,
but you know,
that's a good.
Those are my two honorable mentions.
Rick Moranis.
Oh, actually, also Karibo from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Why Karibo?
You sure sound like Seto Kaiba right now.
I don't remember what Karibo
Steve said,
can do.
Don't you know? This is so foolish. Don't you know that Karibo's the weakest card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh? Most respectable duelists don't even keep a card of his in their deck. Guess what? If you have Karibo and Multiply, game fucking over, dude.
Sean, you have rendered me speechless twice in this episode now.
Doesn't Karibo just like you attack it and it just like negates it once? Isn't that what his effect is?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the first attack doesn't hit, and so if Yugi creates with Multiply, he creates just like a giant defense against Kaiba's Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and so he can't get at Yugi's life points.
Yeah,
and then Yugi fuses his like whatever decaying mammoth to the Ultimate Dragon and slowly kills him.
Nice.
So
yeah,
I was about to say you better show some respect.
Dude,
I get banished to the Shadow Realm.
I love Yu-Gi-Oh! You want to see a cursed image? Look up Sphere Karibo. They should have never done that.
Okay.
on that note, I think that these were great honorable mentions and things that Godzilla should face. We're going to skip Mostly Horror Rex this week and just recommend that everyone watches Godzilla -1 and also Shin Godzilla if you haven't had a chance. As always, send us an email, mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about Godzilla. Let us know what you think about really just Godzilla. That's just what we've been talking about today. Tell us what you think about Godzilla. Who do you think Godzilla could fight? mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. You can send us a message on our Instagram at mostlyhorrorpod or TikTok or Twitter at mostlyhorror. Chelsea, thank you again for being on the show and chatting Godzilla with us. And you can follow me on all the socials at Steven is Average. Sean is everywhere at Hypocrite Inc. or hypocrite.inc. And that is all we got for you this week. We will catch you next time.
Goodbye.